I'm always quite weary when people try to give you advice on how to do good research and how to do bad research. I don't think I really have a recipe book or people really know what that is. Insofar as, from my experience at least advising many doctoral students over the years, different students have very different production functions in terms of doing the much great work that they do. At the same time, I think an important part of the research process is to understand that research is very much of a dialogue where different people make different points and you're trying to be an active participant of that dialogue. And so as a result, if I think about some of the insights that I've had during my research career, they usually came from seeing someone present a paper or me reading that paper, them making a point, me making sense of how that point fit into the rest of the literature, and having, let's say, insights on how I thought that that point either didn't fit with other things or explained some other things in a related topic, and therefore drawing those links and then coming up with my response, with my counter response, if you want, in terms of how I thought that that argument could be elaborated, what its implications were, or even why I thought that wasn't right or that wasn't more valid, as I thought been more of a driving force for the way I conduct my own research. I think economics right now is a very exciting field for young scholars and students to enter. Economics, as for a long time, insisted on being rigorous in the sense of making arguments that, through the use of mathematics, and not only are extremely transparent and therefore can be accepted or rejected easily without too much subjectivity around exactly what someone means. And so I think that's been a strength and one that economists nowadays are very comfortable with. And at the same time, economists have also been relatively comfortable with manipulating data through econometrics to try and learn as much as we can from data about which theories seem more accurate or not, or which facts of data are more interesting to look at. So I think both of those are very solid in terms of what economists do already for at least a generation. What's that allowed is, especially in more recent times, for economists to being then confident in making arguments and being confident in how to treat data in a reliable way, have broadened the set of questions, the set of data, and the approaches that they use in terms of understanding a variety of topics around the world. That rigor and that discipline that was instilled for decades in economics has allowed it precisely to now broaden a considerable amount, be very varied without losing track of that discipline and that rigor that allows you to make, I think, some scientific inferences in a somewhat reliable way and without getting lost in ideological discussions that don't allow for much progress in terms of spending too much time debating what each person means. And so as a result, I think economics is quite exciting for young people today because they know they can come into the field having a set of tools in it that are very powerful, but at the same time be able to employ their own creativity in terms of the questions they want to look at, the way they want to push it, without being too far bound by old topics that have been studied before. I think during my research career, the great event has certainly been the financial crisis of 2007 and 9 and the Euro area sovereign debt crisis of 2011 and 12. Those are inspiring moments, not only because of seeing how macro events have a very large impact on people's welfare, even in advanced countries where it was thought that the macroeconomics was a finished business, but, and importantly, because the amount of policy experimentation that was done at the level of central banks, Minister of Finance, and macro policy generated a variety of new data, a variability that allowed us to understand much better old theories as well as to formulate new ones about how things behave. The crisis was inspiring because it showed us that macro matters and that there is enough macro variability that there is hope that as a scientist, by looking at that data and theorizing about it, we can learn something useful. I would say my main advice for young Portuguese economists who would like to pursue an academic career is to, one, realize that the training that they're getting nowadays in many Portuguese universities is of very high quality, and so as a result, do not feel afraid that you are not competitive or not as well trained as other students abroad, say. But at the same time, that economics at the academic level is very much of a globalized field, and as a result, you cannot just think that you can develop an entire career without leaving the country, but you should think about traveling for studies as well as to present your work and others. the academic world is a very globalized world, and you have to be ready to interact with that global world and with the dialogues going on, with the research going on with that. So my advice would be to not be afraid to do that jump, to go and study abroad at some point and develop some of your work abroad, while at the same time realizing the conditions that you have in Portugal today are quite good and certainly make it feasible to develop a very good career while in the country.